Good, good. Okay, well, let's get started. Welcome everybody to our March RUC meeting. We're glad you're here. On the left side, I put this link in the chat in case you want to link to these resources, but I just thought it would be fun to make sure we give you guys something that you can use for your chamber if you need it. But first of all, I might have welcomed these people last time, but Christine Price from Parowan, Tara Tucker from Big Chamber, Cody Schlotman, he's outreach coordinator for U.S. Representative Celeste Malloy, and Casey Saxton from the office of Congressman Burgess. So they're new to our group, so welcome to them. And then I also just gave you a link. I think I've shared this before, and I stole it right from Cedar City Chamber, but it's just a folder, a member folder. So, and I pull a link in from Canva if you just literally want to like put your logo on it. And then there's also a PDF link if you just want to get some ideas. Oh, and I did want to, I don't know, I think everybody is getting multiple invites, and because I'm receiving multiple acceptings. So I don't know what's going on. So I apologize for that. If you got like 6 invites to this meeting, I'll get that figured out. So.
Oh, hey, so could I just clarify? This is Holly Sweeten. I'm not sure if Casey's on or if my phone is showing Casey. So anyway, Casey Saxton, who is our district director, you said he's on the call, but I wonder if
Holly, can I just interrupt for a second and say hi? Because I've got to run, but I just saw who Connor was talking to and I want to say hello.
That's great.
Yeah, of course.
Good morning, everybody.
Good to see you, Representative Malloy.
Thanks for popping in. We appreciate you so much. We appreciate all of your visits to rural Utah. If you're not following Representative Malloy on Facebook, check her out. She's all over rural Utah.
Well, get to know my staff. Sorry, say that again, Tricia.
Introduce yourself to us, and yeah, we'd love to get to know you more.
Okay, well, I'm Congresswoman Malloy, and I represent 13 of the 29 counties in Utah. So I have a lot of rural area, plus that's where I've spent most of my adult life. So I really care about the rural issues. I grew up in a small town, spent most of my life living in small towns. And I've tried to be really responsive to rural Utah. So I opened new offices in Richfield and Delta to make sure people can get a hold of me. But the things that probably matter the most to the people on this call, one, get to know my staff in Utah, invite them to things, because if they know what you're doing, then they're more likely to be able to realize that we're doing something that can help. And two, I'm on the small business committee and Connor's the boss of that stuff. So keep talking to him about your concerns, keep talking to him about what you're seeing, because we're in a position where we can help address some of those things through our committee work.
Cool.
So
thank you so much.
Thank you for what you're doing. I have to run, but thanks for letting me interrupt and say hello.
Great. Thank you so much, Representative Malloy. That's awesome.
Thank
woohoo,
you.
we love you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Gosh, the fact that she's on the small business committee, I didn't know that. That's a big deal. That's a big deal to keep her office involved. Thank you guys for getting on. That's really exciting. That can make a difference for us. So we appreciate that.
Hey, Tricia, I'm not seeing anything in the chat.
Maybe I'll get it. I'll put it up there when I turn the time over to Joel.
Okay. Yeah, I thought you said you had done that already.
No, but I will for sure. Because like I said, I mean, use it. I mean, you can just, if you have a Canva account, you can just pop in your logos. And if not, you can just have the PDF to get ideas. But so some calendar items. And if anybody has any other, feel free to throw them in. But we are having a Utah Senate candidate forum for the Republican candidates. We'll also have a Zoom one for the Democratic candidates, but this one is a Nephi. It's coming up in a couple weeks. We would love for you guys to join in person if you can. If you can't, you can do a watch party. We would love you to do like an email blast to your chamber members, just so they know about it and can support it. So there's different ways that you guys can come and support and attend that. So
we will be broadcasting that live on our YouTube channel, thanks to Centricom, which is our local broadcasting company here. So make sure you're following our Rural Utah Chamber Coalition YouTube page.
And RUC is in charge of that and sponsoring that. So however you can come, whether it's in person or joining online, we would love for you to support us in that. So, and then there's
Tricia,
go ahead, Joel. Sure.
Tricia, can I just add one thing? If
Yeah.
we could get questions, we've got some questions that have been submitted, but if we could get a few more questions submitted from your chambers of questions that of interest to Rural Utah Chamber, we would love to, entertain those questions and then potentially ask those questions to the candidates. So I would, just the call to action today on that would be to get with your board members and see if they have any questions for the U.S. Senate candidates that are running for this Senate seat. That would be awesome. Like Tricia said, it is on the 20th, so we're looking forward to it, and we'd love to get some questions from our rural chambers.
And Joel, will you put that in the chat and put your contact info so people can send them to you? Or they can send them to
Yes, I will.
Okay, great. Awesome. Okay, then we have the remote, One Utah Summit. If anybody can make it to that, we'll be there. And then Remote Workforce Summit is on May 10th in at Snow College. And then it's very exciting. We've mentioned it before, but we have our RUC conference in Bear Lake, and it's going to be super fun. Tons of great information. Mark Smoot is hosting that for us up in Bear Lake, but he's going to get us some great deals on lodging. We'll get that information to you guys like within the next couple of days. But put on your calendars for July 21st through the 23rd. That's the RUC conference, the Rural Utah Chamber Coalition Conference up in Bear Lake. Also, Mark is making it so we can bring our families if we want. We're going to have a family dinner barbecue on Monday night. So if you want to bring your families up to Bear Lake for that 24th week, we're making that possible so you guys can do that and just tag on to the conference. But it'll be an awesome conference. We hope to see all of you there. We'll start getting more information out for that and get a sign up so everybody can start signing up. Anybody else have any calendar items they want to talk about real quick? Okay, and we'll send out more when they come. But I'm going to turn the time over to Joel for our government update.
Awesome. Thank you, Tricia. Can everybody hear me okay? Great. Awesome. So yeah, the government update, I wanted to talk a little bit about the Corporate Transparency Act, or the CTA. And it was brought to my attention by Chris McCormick, the director down in CEO down at the Cedar City Chamber. And I really appreciate the communication collaboration we've had with Chris on this over the last several weeks. But several years ago, I just kind of want to give you a little bit of background on it and kind of the magnitude of it. And then we've got some good news too at the end. So the act was introduced, and it was slipped in on the National Defense Spending Bill. So it was on the NDAA back in 2021. And what it is it's a Corporate Transparency Act. And what it does is it essentially, for all small businesses, they have to report to the federal government. So it's very intrusive in that regard. They have to report to the federal government if they have any change of address with any equity partner within that organization. So small businesses under 20 employees and under $5 million would have to report to the federal government their date of birth, their driver's license number, and or their passport. And the ramifications behind this, if they don't report, there's a $500 per day fine plus up to 2 years in jail. So it's a pretty big deal if they don't report this, and it's significant. So with this act, like I said, it was introduced, it was put in the NDAA in 2021. It went into effect January 1st, 2024. And so we've received a ton of phone calls from attorneys and CPAs regarding this. They're really concerned about this. A lot of intrusion. And I can see the government's part. They want to stop fraud, and they want to prevent any type of shell corporations being, funding money illegally. But it's really, really intrusive. So that's kind of the background of it. It went into effect this year, January 1st, 2024. And that was part of the final regulation on that. one of the interesting things I found was I talked with a CPA here in the Uinta Basin, and he said that he's got clients that need to file the form because they've had changes within their organization, and the government didn't even have the right form for them to fill out. And so they were already in, breaking the law, but I'm sure there's some type of leniency there, hopefully. But this is part of the Financial Crimes Network, or what they call the FinCEN. So anyway, let's fast forward to last week or the week before last. Good news came out. The District Court of Alabama filed a ruling saying that it was unconstitutional to do this. So the good news is it looks like it's going to be upheld in court, that they're going to put a stay on it for the time being, and it'll probably end up getting appealed and things like that. So to make a long story short, the act is in the court system right now, but from what I'm hearing from attorneys and different people, they're saying, it's probably in the best interest to be if you do have a small business under 20 employees and under $5 million, you do want to report the filing if you do have a change of address or something like that. So there is a website that you can go to. I can put that in the chat as well after I'm finished, but it's www.fincen.gov. Then it has frequently asked questions that you can ask and find out some questions on it. So anyway, that's the good news. The good news is that it is going to be held up in court, but it's probably best if you do have a change in the company to submit the form to stay compliant until they figure this thing out in the courts. So that was kind of my report that I had. Tricia, is there any questions that anybody has, or anybody that wants to add anything? Gary or Kyle or Connor? Connor, do you have any more information on that with Representative Malloy's office?
Nothing else to add. Thanks again for letting us crash the party. But we would love to keep you guys updated and hear more from that standpoint, especially with the committee. We'd love to translate anything there.
Awesome. Connor, we really appreciate you being on the call, and to have Representative Malloy join us there briefly and introducing herself. We really appreciate your office and all the great work you're doing back in DC. And so it's good to have you on the call today.
Thanks, Roel.
You bet. Tricia, back to you.
Hey, we're going to turn the time over to Abby for some chamber sharing. You're on mute.
Sorry, it's won't let me share. Okay, can everybody see that? Okay, can y'all see this? Okay, so I wanted to show you a little bit what we've been doing here. As we're a new chamber, we have no idea what we're doing. So I steal from all of y'all. So I appreciate you guys sharing our ideas because they really help me out. So one of the things that we did in October is a Christmas business bingo. And we did this kind of as a replacement for Small Business Saturday. We kind of extended it. We started it right after Thanksgiving. So Small Business Saturdays when we started, we ran through like December 20th. And what we did, is we created a bingo card for people in town. So for our chamber members to be part of this, they just had to donate something to this event. And so once people went, so they had to go to each business and get a little sticker, which we provided the businesses. And once they made 2 lines of bingo, they turned the card back into the chamber. And then we drew for the prizes that the businesses donated. And it was a lot of fun. So we had like 35, I think, winners. We had a lot of businesses who donated multiple items. Some did gift baskets, some did gift cards, and it was fabulous. So it was a lot of fun for people in the community. They thought it was really great. And they had so much fun going to all these businesses, because a lot of times they were like, oh, I went in there and I've never been in there before and I bought something. So it's a way to get people into the doors of these small businesses. And we thought it was a really fun way to do that. But I stole that from Springfield Chamber. So that was really fun. Another thing we just did is Restaurant Week in Nephi, and I stole this one from Heber Valley Chamber. They have got a beautiful Facebook page, or not Facebook page, but a website page for their Restaurant Week. So the thought of it is, or at least for mine is, kind of that slow, snowy period between Christmas and Valentine's Day. What can I do to help promote local businesses in the restaurant area? And so I thought, well, why don't we do a restaurant week? Because it really doesn't cost the chamber anything to promote it, to make it bigger, but it looks good to our chamber members who are restaurants. So I kind of just created a week, and I went to all the businesses that are restaurants, and I said, okay, this is your chance to test out new menu items, offer exciting specials, or share your culinary journey, do some really cool stuff. And we had several businesses that joined this, and they thought it was really fun. They played along, they donated gift cards, so we gave them out. And it was just a lot of fun. We did a kind of a after the event to find out how it did. And I asked the restaurants, I said, what was your income like this week compared to the same time last year? And they said that it was between 30 and 40% increase in their income just because of this week. And I wanted to show you another thing we did too. I did videos for every single day. I went out and tried new items. And so I did videos. I want to show you a video I created.
Hello, I am excited to celebrate Restaurant Week, and I appreciate everybody who is joining in on the fun and going to join us for a good and tasty time this week. So I wanted to share with you some of my favorites every day that I'm going to go with, and I went full Southern. For those who don't know, I call Charleston, South Carolina home, although I live here now and have for 20 plus years. Charleston is where I grew up, and that's where I'm from. So I went full Southern today. So I stopped by Bev and picked up their drink of the week, which is the peach ring, and it's got 7-Up, peach, mango, watermelon flavors in there. And then I also went to Arby's, and I took advantage of their 2 for $7, their Arby's mac and cheese bites, because who doesn't love macaroni and cheese, right? And these are amazing. Y'all, let me show you. They're so good. You open this up and look at just all that melted yummy goodness. Oh my gosh, they should pay me for the ad. It's so good. Enjoy, y'all.
So what we found is that people really enjoyed these videos that we did focusing on our chamber members and the specials that they had. We had almost 12,000 views on our videos that week, which is more engagement than we've had in a very long time. Let's see. And can you guys see this? It says, let's pause. Lunch and learn topics. No? How about that now? Okay, so another thing I want to show you guys, because I know it's really hard for everybody to kind of come up with new ideas for lunch and learns. So I wanted to share with you what our topics are for this year. So we did one in January on AI and how businesses can use AI. And it was actually a lot more than I thought it was. So I was just thinking using ChatGPT or something like that. And no, it was crazy. We have a big agricultural area, and they were talking about how AI uses the cameras to pick out weeds in a farmer's field. It was really interesting. So we also had Department of Workforce Services come and talk about their services that they offer, talking about interns, programs that they have for businesses to take advantage of. We just had Women in Business Center of Utah come and talk about the services they offer too. We've got next month creating captivating ads with Canva, which is a really big topic with our businesses. They don't have a lot of options to pay people to create ads for them. So they're doing these things themselves. And so we want to show them how to do it, how they can use a lot less money to create ads that look professional. We're also going to have one on LinkedIn and how you can use it to better your business. We always have the city come once a year and talk about the state of the city and what's going on. And then we want to prep for the One Utah Business Summit. So Snow College is going to come and do their Grit Center competition, and the winner of that goes to One Utah Business competition. So we wanted people to become aware of that and what it's all about and how they can enter and present and win that. So we're also going to have somebody who's in computer protection safety come and talk about protecting your business and personal information, because again, we don't have a lot of resources down here. I don't even know of any computer people who could come and say, okay, I need to protect my computer system from hackers. How do I do that? So we've got a guy who's coming. We always do a meet the candidates and a customer service class. which was really wanted by our chamber members. They wanted something where they could teach their chamber people how to be better in customer service, because that was kind of a big complaint in the community. So we're going to work on that. And then the last thing we did last year, we started and we really liked it was our networking Christmas party, which is kind of like, I call it business speed dating. So we have businesses sit in front of each other and they get 1 minute to tell each other about their business and how they can help each other. And then I ring the bell and then they shift chairs. So I've got a little video to show you about that. And it was a lot of fun. People loved it. There are some people who got new jobs from it. So they're making themselves better and increasing their business. And it was really fabulous. So if you're not doing a networking kind of party, make sure y'all do that. So that's what I got.
Thanks so much, Abby. That was awesome. Okay, we're going to turn the time over to Colette to introduce our presenters today.
I'm very excited to have Tracy and Chris with the Utah Office of Energy Development with us today. They'll be talking about energy resources and how they impact our rural communities. I think that as we're working in all areas across the state in rural Utah, we're finding that our infrastructure is critical to attracting and retaining employers, and having those employers there and having really strong businesses in our communities creates a tax base, and we're always looking to expand our tax base. So just wanting to, sometimes we just take for granted that the lights come on and the water flows from our faucets, and it's really up to us from the business community to help support our elected officials as they're looking to expand and upgrade and protect our infrastructure. So with that being said, we'll hear from Tracy first and then from Chris. So welcome.
Thank you, Colette. I appreciate that. I'm just going to share my screen here. So, can you enable sharing for me?
Yes. Actually, I think Trisha, you'll need to do it. There we go. You can share now.
Okay, great. Thank you. Okay, I want to thank Colette for that very nice introduction. As she said, we are from the Utah Office of Energy Development. I'm Tracy Reese. I'm the Public Information Officer. Today, I'm going to talk a little bit about who we are, what we do, and where we do it, so you know a little bit more about our office. So first of all, who are we? We are the Utah Office of Energy Development, or OED for short. We're housed within the Department of Natural Resources, but one of the big differences between our office and the other divisions within DNR is that we are not regulatory. We are policy. So again, we're policy focused. We don't do anything with regulation. What does it mean to be a policy office? And I'll go into a little bit more detail after I give this kind of high level overview of what our office does on each one of these. We advise the governor and the legislature on energy policy and making sound energy policy. We also do cat herding, or creating, implementing, and carrying out different programs. We also are engaged in community outreach and engagement. And we also do educational resources. And I'll talk a little bit more about each of these. So that's sort of a broad overview of who we are. We're policy, we do programs, we do education, we are not regulatory. So policy, what does it mean to do policy? We advise the governor, we advise the legislature, but we want to do that in an informed way. So one of the things we do is we do research. We're a small office of 20, but we're getting ready to hire some additional folks, and that will be specifically, some of those will be for our research team. So we'll be doing more research so that we can provide, evidence-based data for our policymakers so that they're making sound, good policy. This little screenshot here is from our website. Under information, you can find publications and reports that we've done. we're going to be adding to this, obviously, as we grow our research team and do more research. I encourage you all just to take a look at this. And I really recommend reading the gasoline report. That sounds incredibly boring, but it's not. It's actually really fascinating to see all the different factors that go into determining the prices for our gasoline here in Utah. And it's very easy to read. It's not highly technical. We made sure that these things are accessible and easily understandable by anybody who wants to pick them up and learn more about energy. So you can find that on our website. Like I mentioned, the other thing we do are programs. Some of our programs include things like the Electric Vehicle Infrastructure, or NEVI, the Rural Electric Vehicle Infrastructure, or REVI, the Uinta Basin Aerial Leak and Detection Repair Program, and then our longest running and most robust program is our State Energy Program. The State Energy Program is a federally funded program that aims to advance technical assistance and state-led energy initiatives. We have a really great SEP team. They do a lot of our educational efforts, and I'll talk a little bit more about those. Of course, it takes funding to run these programs. So one of our operations within the office is actually pursuing funding opportunities that we use to make sure that we can carry out things like REVI or NEVI or even our educational stuff. So those are some of the operations within the office. As far as education goes, our SEP team oversees a lot of those efforts. One of the things they've done is they've established a relationship with Chevron for the Energy Pathways Scholarship. That provides $3,000 in scholarship funds for high school seniors or college freshmen who are pursuing energy-related degrees or STEM degrees. They also have the Energy Pathways Internship. This is a real-world experience internship where we bring in young college students to gain experience in the energy space. This is not, clean up our files. This is real-world experience that they can take to their jobs, to their careers. And these two efforts together really create a pipeline of highly skilled workers for the future workforce in energy. They're really important for that. And then also we have our curricula. You can see this here. This is taken from our website. One of the other things that our SEP team has done is they've partnered with the Utah Science Teaching Association to develop curricula for K through 12 classes around energy issues and science stuff. So they all meet state standards. They're free and available to educators. It's one of the efforts that our office does that's really near and dear to my heart because I just came from the College of Education up at the U. So I understand how stretched thin our educators are, and I love that we support them with this because there are free lessons and handouts. The other thing that our SEP team does to support our educators is we have professional development. So educators can come and actually carry out some of these lesson plans and see what they're like. And I'm going to share a video with you here about one of those where they've created some little solar powered cars and they have a race. I'll share that video and you can just see how fun and engaging these resources are. So that just kind of gives you a glimpse of what some of the curricula looks like and how fun that is. We have a couple of other videos where you can just see how much the educators are enjoying actually carrying out these lesson plans. But if you know an educator, please encourage them to access these resources and use them because it helps them get some of their weekend back.
Is there, really quick, can I ask you a question, Tracy? Is there like an age or grade range on that for education?
It's all K through 12. So we do it by elementary to high school. So they should be able to find, I'm trying to think when science curricula comes in. I'm not sure if that's 2nd or 3rd grade maybe, but it'll say in the standards and it'll even tell them like what standard does that meet. So really encourage your educators, if you know any, to access this resource. We do other educational resources and this is one I'm going to share here. Does that answer your question, Abby? Okay, great. So one of the other things we put together, and I really encourage everybody to look at this, we partnered with the Utah Geologic Survey to create this resource. This resource is really for our policymakers, for people in the business community like you, for people in the public. We just want people to understand the energy resources in Utah. We're kind of an energy resource rich state. And we created this website. And let me get here. So you can see we have all of the different energy resources in Utah. solar, hydroelectric, biomass, wind, everything. So we can pick one of these. And you can take a minute to load because it is an interactive web map. So let me see if I can move this. So you can see here that there's different layers. You can look at natural gas processing plants. You could look at the power plants, and the little eye over here tells you if you're seeing that layer or not. So if you want to just not see that layer, if you wanted to see just one thing or a couple of things, you can do that. But you can come here, you can click on the resource, and it will show you the name of the plant. It'll tell you when it started operations, how much power it provides, how much wattage we're getting out of that by year. So this is just a great resource to see what kind of natural, energy generating resources you have in your area. There's data on the site. You can come down, you can learn about production, consumption, prices, and each one of these resources has the interactive map as well as this additional information at the end. So I really do encourage everybody to take a look at that as well, because it's just a really good resource. So again, community outreach and engagement is the other thing we do. We sit on over 38 boards and committees. So this is going to be things like the Utah Energy Infrastructure Board, Western Interstate Energy Board, Unified Economic Opportunity Commission. We recently wrapped up the Energy Strike Team, which kind of provided a foundation for our state energy plan. Sitting on these boards and these committees is really important because it makes sure that Utah has a voice with these different energy constituents and in these different energy spaces. And again, we sit on over 38 of these boards and committees. So that's sort of the other thing we do. We also have tax incentives and rebates, and Chris is going to talk a little bit more about that. So that's another office operation that we have. So let's talk a little bit about where do we work? So we're actually located in Salt Lake. We're just east of DNR. I don't know how many of you have been there, maybe getting hunting or fishing licenses, but we're just east of DNR in the Cannon building. This is a picture of our building. If you're ever in town, I really do encourage you to stop by and pay us a visit, because sound policy isn't just made by good data, it's also made by good relationships. So please pay us a visit if you're ever around, because we would love to see you. We may be located in Salt Lake, but we work for all of Utah. So we aren't just focused on, our major cities. We're also focused on our rural communities. Our leadership, both our director and our deputy directors, are from rural communities. So they have a really good understanding of what the challenges and the opportunities are for our rural communities. And it's something that we're kind of always keeping in mind as we're doing that. So what does that look like? This last session, there were 11 different energy bills that passed. Because we're a policy office, we were heavily engaged in drafting, editing, providing feedback on 7 or 8 of those bills. Another 3 or 4 we were moderately involved with. And then a couple, there were only a couple that we didn't really engage with. We were engaged with almost all of that energy legislation that passed this last session. You've probably seen some of that legislation as being characterized that the state is trying to keep coal alive. That's absolutely not true. What we are trying to do is make sure that Utah continues to have reliable, affordable, adequate energy, and to give our rural communities time to develop diverse economies and to adjust to, a rapidly evolving energy landscape. And then we had a hand in that, and that's one of the things we keep in mind. How do things affect our rural communities? And we kept that in mind as we did engage with this legislation. Utah has I think we have the lowest priced energy right now, electrical energy. You may have seen that in the news. That doesn't happen by accident. It happens through good policy. A couple of other examples, 2 of our most recent professional development sessions that we held were in St. George. One was in Blanding. Our SEP team specialist that is working with UDOT on the REVI program has identified 2 rural communities where they have them as priorities. I don't want to say who they are because I'm not sure if they want to share that yet, but they've identified 2 of our rural communities as priority areas for that infrastructure. But we're also, in addition to legislation, we're always thinking about what are the new ways, what are the new opportunities for us to support our rural communities? So an example of that is we're looking at geothermal. Geothermal is something that we feel is really undervalued and underfunded as an office, and we would like to see more development of that. Utah has an opportunity to be a leader. Abby mentioned, AI and some of these other kind of energy hungry, technologies that are out there. But we're thinking as an office, what can we do to make sure we can bring in those kind of industries, those energy hungry industries, without taxing our grid? Or there opportunities to further develop potentially solar or geothermal to bring in data centers, AI, and make sure that they're here in our rural communities, providing good paying jobs, bringing in infrastructure, but not taxing the grid? And can we maybe do that through solar or geothermal? So that's one of the things we're looking at, different policies and how can we support geothermal. We also support Forge and Fervo. Those are in Milford. They're neighbors with each other. Fervo is a private-owned company that is using oil and gas drilling technologies to create geothermal and make sure that we don't have to rely just on those natural occurring water wells in the ground, where they can actually manufacture those, create those, so we can tap into the Earth's heat and get that geothermal energy. They just connected, I think it was 3 or 4 wells that will produce about 8 megawatts each. So there's a lot of proof of performance happening there. And then Forge is a DOE funded organization that's just purely research. And they're looking at how can they really bring down the risks and the costs associated with geothermal so that they can advance it. Again, we think there's a lot of potential there, especially a lot of potential for our rural communities with this energy resource. And so we do what we can to support Fervo and Forge. We write letters of support on their behalf. We try to partner with them when we can, because we are looking at new opportunities for our rural partners in that, and making sure that we're not just thinking about today, but we're also looking forward to tomorrow and what can we do to support all of Utah, and that includes our rural partners. So that is sort of the end of the presentation. Are there any questions before I turn the time over to Chris? Any questions about legislation or any of the programs that our office carries out?
Could you give us a couple highlights, Tracy, from the legislation, like maybe the top 2 pieces that were passed that will
Sure.
impact rural Utah? Or the
Yeah, so
state?
of course. So one of the things we passed was to ensure that Utah's energy policy is consumer centric. Energy exists for one purpose and one purpose only, and that is to meet human demand, right? To satisfy the things that we need it to do. And what we don't want to do is get into a situation where we're transitioning to different resources or things too early, and we're seeing prices go up, but we're seeing capacity go down. So we're really trying to make sure that we maintain where we're at, where we could think of that as kind of a surviving, but we also want to get into that thriving mode. We're going to have more energy demands as we go, not less. So it's more of the above for the state. And we're just really centering people in this to make sure that we're able to meet those energy needs. And we are going to engage in that research like I talked about. So we're interested in innovating and inventing and making sure that we can develop energy resources and make them cleaner and more efficient. That includes our traditional fuels as well as new underfunded and undervalued things like geothermal. So we've really, in one of our bills, centered people at that so that we can make sure we're meeting that human demand. So that's one of the things that we did. We'll also be, you saw probably a lot of in the media about keeping plants open and running. Again, that's about to make sure that we're not getting into a situation where we don't have adequate replacements. It's not about keeping coal alive. It's about making sure that we have the energy we need to not just survive, but also thrive, because we're going to need that energy to invent and innovate and get us to the place that we want to go in the future. The San Rafael Research Lab, that was passed in legislation that will be taking over that management from Emory County. The county's done as much as they can with it. They've really grown and turned that into an international treasure, and will be probably taking over that management and really making sure that it grows and that there's a lot of research that can happen there, and it's research that helps the state meet its energy goals. So those are just a couple of the legislative highlights, but this was a really productive session for us, and I think we got a lot of really good bills passed that are going to make sure we continue to enjoy that reliable, affordable, adequate energy, and can continue to meet the energy demands that are just going to grow year after year.
So incredible. Thank you so much for that update. And I have the Beaver County Milford geothermal project in my region, and that project alone will create over 2,000 jobs, several hundred that are permanent, several, 2,000 that are, just as the project gets built out. But if you can think about the economic impact, not only for the people in Beaver County and the surrounding areas that will be hired directly for the positions open with Fervo, there's ripple effect. So all of the mechanics in town will get more work, the restaurants, the hotels, everything from the barber shops to the cafes and insurance companies, the whole area will thrive just because of that one project. And if any of you have been to Milford, it's a very remote part of Utah, and it's got a lot of real potential. So it just shows that through this higher level coordination through the state, these projects are not only impactful on the energy front, but extremely impactful on the economic front as well. So thank you so much,
Absolutely.
Tracy.
Yeah, thank you, Colette. Appreciate it. And yeah, completely agree. It's a whole economic ecosystem, and that's why we're always thinking about what are the new opportunities. And yeah, completely agree. It benefits the whole entire area in a lot of ways.
And when you are able to release the names of those 2 rural areas that have been picked for that special project, will you come back and give us a short update?
For sure.
Okay.
Yeah. In fact, most of it'll be rural. They're thinking about it as, you connect the dots to create a rural EV infrastructure. So most of that it's going to be rural Utah, but we've got 2 areas already identified. And as soon as we can share that, we absolutely will.
That's fantastic. Thank you so much. And we'll turn the time over to Chris now.
Yeah, hi. Thank you for having me. Excited to be here. My name is Chris Reisinger. I'm Incentives Manager here at the Office of Energy Development. Simply what that means is that I run our energy tax credits, which if you don't know anything about tax credits, buckle in. It's just as exciting as it sounds. So get ready for a wild ride here. All right. I've got a few slides that I'll quickly go through here. If you could allow me to share my screen here.
There you go. You're good to go, Chris.
Sweet. Thank you. All righty. All righty. So we have 5 tax credit programs that we administer here at the office. The first is the Renewable Energy Systems Tax Credit, or RESTC, the Production Tax Credit, or the PTC, the High Cost Infrastructure Tax Credit, the HCITC, the Alternative Energy Development Incentive, or the AEDI, and the WWR, or the Well Workover and Recompletion. I'll go a little bit into what each of these are. First up, our most popular is the Renewable Energy Systems Tax Credit. This is our most used tax credit, wherein if a business or homeowner, usually most of the time it's solar panels, they put solar panels on the roof, they get a tax credit. And we're the ones that certify that tax credit. And it's not just for solar panels though. It could be for any smaller distributed renewable energy systems, like passive solar systems, wind, geothermal, hydroelectric, biomass, and certain renewable thermal systems. But I would say about 98% of our approved systems are solar panels on homes. The credit amount is different depending on the type of technology. For solar PV on residences, on people's homes, it depends on the year of installation and what your credit cap is going to be. And after 2023, it is no longer available in the state of Utah. The federal credit still is, but the state credit is not. For the other technologies like a geothermal heat pump, or if you get those solar tubes that heat up a pool or something like that, those are known as passive thermal systems. You can still get a credit for those, and that is 25% system cost up to $2,000. So still pretty substantial credit for that for homeowners. For businesses, this is a refundable credit, and it is 10% of the system cost or $50,000, whichever is less. And this covers the same kinds of systems, mostly solar PV, but it can also be geothermal, it can be biomass, it can be hydroelectric, whatever a business may do. This one's really nice because it's refundable, which a lot of businesses like, because then it means they get a higher refund rather than it just taking their tax liability down, right? This one doesn't phase out though. So if a business puts solar panels up on their rooftop or in their yard, they can still get a tax credit for that. Next is the production tax credit. This one is supposed to kind of mimic the federal production tax credit, and that is for large scale utility energy production from solar PV, wind, biomass, and geothermal projects. The way that this credit works is that if it is producing electricity and is one of those, the entity or the developer can get 0.35 cents per kilowatt hour of electricity produced for the first 48 months of operation. Again, I always have to reiterate, it's 0.35 cents, not 35 cents. So a third of a cent. Sometimes people get a little excited because they think I said 35 cents, and it's like, no, we don't have that much money for you. But and there was one individual who was a little sad that they misunderstood, but they still got a credit, so they're fine. This one is the most utilized of our large tax credits. Any and all, almost, I'd say it's fair to say about 98% of the large scale solar and wind and geothermal projects that you've seen in Utah have utilized this credit. So it's been really important in attracting energy development within rural areas specifically, because it is so generous and because it is refundable, which is really nice for these developers. There's also a hydrogen fuel producing portion of this credit, where any projects that are producing hydrogen fuel can get a tax credit at 12 cents per kilogram for the first 48 months of production, up to 5,600 metric tons per year. So there's a lot of talk around hydrogen and, fuel cells and hydrogen fuel production and hydrogen electricity. This specifically is for hydrogen fuel production, so producing that H2. So if it doesn't need to come from renewable sources. It can come from non-renewable sources. So that credit is there and available for kind of this incoming wave of hydrogen production. There's an application process for this. It's actually pretty simple, where they come to me, they apply, they present their project, and I see if it fits within the statute. If it does, I approve it. And then every year they come back for their credit certification. The HCITC, the High Cost Infrastructure Tax Credit, this one is a very large tax credit that gets adjusted all the time, but unfortunately is one of the most misunderstood tax credits. In a nutshell, it's for projects that make large infrastructure changes, not just for their business, but somehow improves the local community or the state of Utah, right? Yes, every business brings in new jobs and new tax revenue, but how does these new infrastructures improvements improve the local community and the state? Doesn't necessarily mean that the infrastructure needs to be publicly accessible. Great if it is, if you're updating some county roads or some city pipelines or something in relation to a project, great. But there's some other ways that we could talk about, like community benefit, when it comes to these upgrades. This one is a pretty big tax credit, and it's a little confusing. The overall approved tax credit is 50% of the construction costs, or 30% for tier 3 fuel projects at refineries. And then once you get approved for that 50% cap, the companies start construction, or if they've already started construction within a year, and then they can come back to us every year for 30% of their infrastructure related taxes and get a tax credit for that. And so we certify that and give that to them. And then they keep getting that tax credit every year until they either reach their 50% cap, or at the end of the economic life of the project, or after 20 years. So pretty substantial. As you can imagine, this is a pretty big tax credit. So there is a lot that we kind of follow up on and make sure businesses are doing, and individual CPA reports and board approvals and things like that. This past legislative session, there was HB 124 that made some changes, a lot of different changes, but in a nutshell, it modifies the definitions and qualifications for eligible projects that our office is still kind of parsing through and trying to fully understand what that means for future projects. In the past, it didn't need to be an energy or an infrastructure specific project. It could be a turkey farm that is updating some roads and pipelines and transmission, and we could approve that. But with the new legislation, that may change that up a little bit. So we're still trying to parse out and figure that out. It also expands to include certain types of infrastructure like hydroelectric and battery storage, nuclear generation, geothermal, certain emissions reduction, water purification, and water forecasting projects. This is big because it means that these things are considered infrastructure. So they could necessarily get, you know, a new geothermal plant could get this tax credit based on their tax revenues for the entire plant and the construction of the entire plant. So it's a pretty big deal. And it also lowers the eligibility qualifications for certain projects located in rural counties and municipalities. This is a big deal as well, because a lot of times smaller projects in rural areas could not qualify for this credit simply because there wasn't enough investment, right? Especially in existing projects. So by being able to lower the threshold, we're able to be able to cater to rural projects a little bit more. I won't get into all this. This is the 5-step long process for approving these tax credits, and it's our only one that requires a board approval. And as you can see, a lot of different documentation and things that go into it. But I'm happy to walk through any, you know, potential project that's coming through. And then the alternative energy development incentive. This one kind of works the same thing as the HCITC, but it is simply if you are a big alternative energy development project like hydroelectric, solar, biomass, geothermal, wind, nuclear, and then other things, certain unconventional resources, they call them, like oil shale or coal to liquid or anything like that. You could get this tax credit if you're providing at least 2 megawatts of electricity, 1,000 barrels of oil equivalents, or 250 barrels of oil, or excuse me, per day of biomass energy fuel. This one's a pretty simple and nice energy tax credit that allows us to cover a whole host of different large-scale energy development projects. Then finally, the WWR, this one's real simple. When an oil gas company goes in and they do a well recompletion or workover project, they get a tax credit at 20% up to $30,000 of the expenditures. This one's really, we are kind of an approval of the approval, where the Division of Oil, Gas, and Mining, they actually do the expenditure approval. Then they come to us, give us that form, and we say, you're good to go. Here's your certificate for your credit. And that is pretty much it on the tax credit sides. I know I went through those kind of fast, but overall, the message is if you have any potential energy or infrastructure related projects that you think may qualify for this, feel free to send them my way, and I can take a look at their project and kind of see whether or not they would apply, whether or not these tax credits could apply to their situation, and how to do the application process and all of that. So yeah, there's my information and my email. Feel free to email me at any time.
Thank you so much, Chris. And David just asked, will this information be mailed out? And yes, we will get this information to you. We'll have Chris and Tracy email their slides to us. And so we'll send that out with our follow-up email that Abby always does with the recording of this meeting. And as you can see, this is so important to the foundation of your economic development base. And again, if your community is not taking advantage of these incentive programs, and it may be you that introduces this to your city council, to your commissioners, and really help them understand how important it is to be connected with the Office of Energy. So thank you again for being here.
Thanks, you guys. Now we're going to turn the time over to Monica for about 5 minutes. She is our legislative advocacy guru, and she's going to kind of let us know what happened with the recent legislative session.
All right, so I'm going to try to just keep this brief because we have other meetings and everyone's busy. But it was an interesting session. They did some very interesting things. The budget was a total of $29.4 billion. And that was a lot less than it has been. It was a socks and underwear year. If you ever heard Senator Stevenson speak, I'm going to try to just go over business ones. So the Major League Baseball will, if a team comes to Utah, it's a 1.5% increase on car rental tax. They did go after hotel tax. That was killed for the time being. However, the Utah Office of Tourism was not Utah. Yeah, it was Utah Office of Tourism funding. The Tourism Marketing Performance Fund. They really tried to take money from there quite a bit this year that they haven't done in the past. And I think it was just because it was so low budget year. They were trying to find money from all the different pots, and tourism is one of those pots that definitely makes the state money. But there's a formula set where, okay, this is how much money they bring in. If they bring in this much money, they're guaranteed this much money to market the state of Utah. And that they were trying to decrease quite a bit. The hotel tax, like I said, it was killed for this year, but we do expect it will come up in future years for funding of Major League Baseball. The Utah Tourism Industry Association is very against this, simply because they've studied it, and Major League Baseball really doesn't bring overnight visitors in. It usually brings in travel, not as many overnight visitors. And that would be a lot of money coming in, and basically conferences and stuff, the tax, especially in Salt Lake, would be really high, like put us at the same levels as Anaheim for just our taxes. So that's one to watch. I think Lacey was on a call. I don't think she's here today, but Lacey was on a call. And I mean, even just the increase on car rental tax is not good for our rural areas like Moab, where they do a lot of Jeep rentals and UTV rentals. It will impact them because the prices will end up going up because of the taxes. And again, it may or may not be impacted by Major League Baseball in Moab, Utah. So that's one to watch. It is one that the tax will only go into effect when a Major League Baseball team is named, I believe, is what I've read. The National Hockey League, really, their tax is if we get a National Hockey League, but it is just for the downtown Salt Lake area, but it would be a sales tax increase. So it doesn't necessarily impact the whole state, but the Major League Baseball one does. Other bills, water, this one is a huge one for rural Utah, I think. I don't know how many of you have been following it. I want to make sure I get it right. It's Senate Bill 211. This one is creating a water board to study the next 100 years of water, which sounds really, really great, except for it is just the 4 largest water conservancy districts on the board. So that is Weber Basin, so Weber Davis, West Jordan, or the Jordan River Water Council, Central Utah Water, and then the St. George Water Conservancy. So if you are not served by one of those, your water interests are not, well, they'll probably be considered, but we don't have a voice. Cache County, Box Elder County, completely left out of the water discussion for the next 100 years. Yes, those conservancy districts are supposed to talk to the other conservancy districts, but for it, and it also hired a water manager for the state of Utah. Interesting bill. We all knew it would pass. It was run by the speaker and the Senate president. But like I said, there was definitely some discussion because large parts of Utah were just kept out of it. They kept it really, really small, and it's all about going to our neighboring states and asking if they have water and figuring out how we will have water in 100 years. But anyway, interesting bill. It, like I said, it does fund a new person as well at the state. That one really doesn't impact us. Tax cut, you all have seen, there was a income tax cut. Housing, a lot of the housing bills were for developers to be able to access funding for infrastructure through loans that maybe cities could get, I believe. Colette will know more, but they say it's gonna be great. I don't know. I think our housing is so screwed up right now. I don't know if there's much help in getting it fixed. The first time home buyer program, that was, I think it got more funding this year. But I don't know how many people are being able to utilize that since it's new builds and a certain amount of money. Let's see.
Really quick.
Those are all the big ones that I can think of.
Monica.
There was an omnibus alcohol bill that passed that at least the two huge, horrible, bad liquor bills for bars did not pass, and they did that information, the bad privacy information didn't make it into the omnibus bill. So actually the omnibus bill ended up being fairly good with extending liquor licenses and portability. But let's see. Question, it might be better just asking questions, because I may or may not know the answer. I was really hoping Ginger would be on this call, but she's not. Ginger knows more than me. So
Hey, they didn't fund any more of that first time home buyer program. They had so much.
did they not?
They had so much money left over. They only did about 30% of what they had hoped to give out last year. They did, so there was no need to do it. So they still have over 1,700.
That's because it's not a user-friendly program.
Well, and it's kind of it's hard because it's impractical to get a home under 450,000, and
Yep.
it's really hard to get people to yeah.
Yep.
And I've had to find a second job because mortgages are nothing's happened.
Yeah.
Those other two, the builder ones, they are, because I'm looking into it. One of them is the state is going to give money to small businesses and banks. So this could, if you have like a small credit union or something like that in your chamber area, they could take advantage of it. So they'll get, it's like they have $300 million they want to give to small banks and credit unions in like rural Utah to loan out to builders so they can do infrastructure and stuff like that in their area. So if they want to build, but they have to agree to build like small low income homes. So like 350,000. But it's a way for banks to, because a lot of times the banks, they're limited on how much they can loan out based upon their deposits. So this actually frees up money for them to loan out at cheaper interest rates, because it's like 1.5% above the prime rate. And so it's cheaper for the developers to borrow the money and the banks have money to lend out. So that's kind of nice.
I think most importantly, we can see that it's so critical for our local business representatives to have a voice along with our elected officials. Businesses and the business community have the attention of our legislators, and if we don't speak up, then we may have major legislation that impacts rural areas, as you can see. And just like Monica said, Lacey from the Moab Chamber and the various chambers spoke up against the taxation, and they did change it. So wasn't a perfect change, but they did change it. So
Yeah, it could have been much worse.
So we need your voices.
Hey, thank you so much, Monica. Super informative. Okay, now we'll close this meeting, but if you're with the chamber or just anybody, but stay for our linger longer, we're going to talk about some non-revenue events, some stuff we can do to make revenue that are non-due. So thanks so much for coming. Have a great weekend, and stick around if you want to do our linger longer.
Thank you so much.
Thanks, everyone.
Thanks for letting me listen, guys.
Have a good weekend.
Thanks, Kyle.
I totally have another meeting, but I want to hear about revenue, so I'm gonna stay. Shh. It's Water Conservancy.
Well, how can we just like get ideas from everybody? Because this is kind of like what we do in the Central Utah Chamber Council. We kind of share ideas and stuff like that. And I've gotten a lot of ideas from them that I'm not sure everybody knows about, but I know you do, Monica. You're like the best. So, non-dues revenue. If you guys have any ideas, Monica, since you have to go, do you have anything that is like a great money maker for you guys? Like is it an event? Is it print? What do you guys do?
So the easiest, like everyone knows Peach Days is my number one, but that's not easy. That takes months. But the easiest I've found is to go to your government entities that you're already doing and asking, like Trisha emailed me the other day. And so I'll just expand a little bit, but so Brigham City gives us money to help with Peach Days, to organize Peach Days. I don't say it's to help. So we get a funding source from them.
How much do you get from them?
27,000 for Peach Days. And the great thing, they have never asked me to decrease it because I've been getting the same for 23 years. So I've never asked for an increase. They better be, they know better. But like Box Elder County defunded their business resource center and their business expansion and retention program a few years ago. And this was right after COVID. They were like, this isn't working. We're going to get rid of it. So I went to the county commissioners and I said, okay, you already are funding these things. And they were funding them at least $50,000 plus. It was a lot. And I said, I will do it for 25,000 because I knew what my budget needed, but you guys could ask for whatever you want. And I said, we're doing it for 25. We'll do it for 25,000 because guess what? It's stuff I already do. I already do membership visits with the businesses. All I have to do is report to the county once a year on who I visited. And if there was any questions or major concerns, I do say in the meetings, do you have any questions or concerns for the county? I have a direct line to our commissioners. It's stuff we're already doing. So It's not creating more work. One thing we did do this year, I haven't decided if it's good or not, but we took over the management of our conference center. So we have a small building that we rent out for weddings. So the city came to us. My mayor is a past chamber president, and he's very forward thinking of the city shouldn't do some things. Government shouldn't have their hands in some things. One of those things he felt like was running a building. So he came to us and said, you guys will do it better. You market better. You have the in with the businesses. You have the in with the community. So now the city is also giving us money to run that center. And basically the cost that they give us covers all the utilities because it's a really old building and the utilities are insane, and all the staffing. And then the money we make by renting the building, we're going to split with the city, the profit at the end of the year, 50-50. So this is the first year. It will end in June, but it's expanded our reach and our growth. And I don't know if it will be a huge money maker, but it will be. It's been great out in the community for the most part. It's a lot of work, but I hired another full-time person, so they do it. But yeah, look for opportunities where it's something you're already doing and asking. Because that's going to be so much easier than trying. People that I've met with other chambers and they're like, we want to create an event. Chris knows this, and it's hard. I mean, I couldn't have created Peach Days 20 years ago. It's been in existence for over 100 years. We just make it more economically viable every year, kind of, and that kind of stuff. So, but other than that, we're doing chamber travel like Chris does. Those are all the big things. So.
And how long have you been a director, Monica?
Since 2003.
Wow.
You're so
I started in October of 01.
to pick your brain all the time because I think you've got fabulous ideas. So
yeah, well, and the other thing is if you're talking to your members, like we're have a huge commuting issue, you know, where all our workers are commuting to Weber or Davis County to work. So my members will pay me, like, think of programs that your members want, like workforce development is a huge one right now, or, you know, getting employees. Think of things you can do and bring those members together to advertise together of like, I haven't done it yet, but I want to run a work and live in Box Elder County, work where you live, because they already have homes here.
Hmm.
And they don't have to buy a home to work. And so but I haven't started it yet, but that's my next goal. And I've already talked to a lot of large businesses that will help fund that marketing campaign. So
Monica, do you know about Future Ready? The thing that it's workforce development that SUU is doing. They got a big grant for it.
no, there's Talent Ready at USHE I met with, but I have a grant for workforce. So, but I haven't seen the SUU. If you'll send it to me, that'd be awesome.
Yeah, it's really great. I will. In fact, there's even an opportunity to get, I don't know what they call it on the board. It's just, yeah, I'll have to, but they got like $2 million and they went to Kanab last time, but they're going to a different rural community every time, but I'll have to send you the info.
Yeah, send me the info, because sometimes SUU forgets that there's the northern part of the state, so I might be able to be the one rural area and
Yeah.
in northern Utah.
That'd be awesome.
So
Well,
that'd be
and
awesome.
one other thing I want to bring up, and Jim could probably speak about this more than I could, but because I had never heard of it until I started hanging out with Jim and Spanish Fork and stuff, is he's got this great community guide that he makes money off of. Do you want to speak on that, Jim, really quick?
Yeah, I mean, most of the chambers, I think, I know up here, all have a magazine that we put out once a year. We hire a publisher, they go sell the ads, and most of them will guarantee a minimum payday for us. Ours, I think, is $3,500. And then if they sell over so many ads and make, you know, much more money, then they start splitting the profits with us if they sell a lot of ads.
So Jim told me about that. And so we created our first community guide this year, or I guess last year. We did it in October. And they were reluctant because it's the first time we've ever done it. And there's, you know, we're a small chamber, a very small chamber. And so they were reluctant. And I said, look, I don't know that we'll even get anything off of it. So if you just will do it just to prove a concept, then you don't have to pay me anything. And so they agreed to that, but they said we ended up selling enough ads that we can give you a check. So we actually got money off of it. So I appreciate Jim on that. So,
We use it, we give it to our welcome bags. So with the cities pass out a welcome bag to all the new residents. So we throw it in there. I take it to all my trade shows that I have a booth. And it's just a good quality piece, and it just gives you a little bit more, you know, leverage as a chamber that you're legit, you know.
Yeah, I agree.
And it's a selling point to new membership that, hey, if you join the chamber, you will get your name in this magazine that hangs around all year. It's just another, you know, marketing avenue for them.
Well, and that's kind of like what we did. So if you're a higher paying member, you get highlighted in these areas here under like the thing. And we tell people, you know, it gets mailed to everybody in the area. We do also put them in the welcome bags. And so I think it's pretty great. You're just looking for a little bit more money. So we went over the magazine, the city events, like we talked about. And then anybody else have any other different areas to get money for revenue streams?
I know for the Kanab Area Chamber of Commerce, they have had a really unique program. They didn't have anyone servicing the region with a rack card program, like the little brochures that you see in restaurants and hotels. And we have so many restaurants and hotels in Kane County. And so the chamber, along with the Office of Tourism, made a major investment in the actual stands. And it was about an $8,000 initial investment in 30 stands. And then the chamber would solicit the chamber members and others to print the brochures, and then the chamber stocked the stands. And so that brought in between $8,000 and $10,000 over the years. On a very low year, like during COVID when they weren't doing too much, it still brought in like $2,500, $3,000. And so again, if you've got a rural area that's not being serviced and you are looking for ways to promote your businesses, that could potentially be something to do in partnership with your Office of Tourism. And Pat Guerrero could tell you about more the details about that program and how they set up the contracts. So, but yeah, we did that for, gosh, it's been about 8 years, 9 years.
What you do?
Hey, I think that's all I had for ideas for different revenue and stuff. I know we're working on a Lemonade Day, which is like our youth entrepreneurship program. And we're the first one in the state to do it, but it's nice because the program is already developed. I don't have to develop something and go teach it. I just get the little cartoon workbooks and we give them out to the kids and stuff, and then they work on it during the summer with their parents, and then it culminates in them setting up a lemonade stand at the hospital's kids health fair. And so we're getting sponsors right now for it. And so far it's been pretty good. We have pretty good success. You know, some of these places, like big places like Detroit, make like tens of thousands of dollars off that lemonade, you know, just being an advertising partner and stuff like that. So we'll see how much money we make off of that, but that'll be good.
So we try to make money on sponsorships, but I'm a horrible sponsorship seller. And the burden seems to always come back to me. The board is trying to get involved and help now, but do you guys do a lot of sponsorships throughout the year, and do you roll them all into your membership packages? I know Abby does some of that. Or how do you go out and keep selling sponsorships to the same 100 businesses?
Yeah, I don't know about that, Jim, because I didn't want to be doing that. I didn't want to.
I don't blame you.
Because it is true. You know, I kind of did it with the lunches, trying to get businesses to sponsor just the lunch the first year. And it was like I could get 3 or 4 and then that was it. And so I thought, okay, I can't keep doing this. If I just include it in their yearly fee, then they'll do it. So now
if you make that transition, then you've got to ultimately raise that yearly fee. How and when do you make that transition?
So we did it at the second year. So the first year we just did by employees. And then the second year we rolled it out and said, okay, if you want to be part of blah, 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 then you need to be under this tier. And that, because the big one before I kind of started introducing these other ones was like the Halloween, because we print off flyers saying it's a business trick or treat. And so we put on the business and the address of where the kids can go. And we deliver to all the kids in the elementary schools, and people wanted to be on that flyer. And so they would join the chamber. I'm like, okay, so if you want to be on that flyer, you need to be a silver member, which is $200 a year. So you can't just do a basic $75 package. You had to do this. So if they did that, and then they did other things like, okay, it's $750, but you get a $200 credit to use towards some kind of advertising package. So you can be on this, or this. So maybe you do it that way and say, you guys have a choice now on where you want to use your money. That way it like makes them pay it. And then, you know, and then we do promote at our lunches saying, don't forget, if you're a premier member, you have a $200 credit you can use to something. And sometimes I'll even call them and say, hey, we need you to do it. So some of them don't use it. And then it's just extra money for us that was never used, you know?
Is that how you guys do it, Colette, Tricia?
We've done it both ways. When I worked for St. George Chamber, we had a couple different approaches. I'm with Abby though, like if you can get that money up front, and anything you can do up front with the membership just once a year instead of going back and back and back, it does make it harder. Other than like for special events, like big special events like the gala that they just had in Cedar, and like I'm excited. It sounds like you had a successful gala event in your area. So it's great.
Yeah.
But yeah, I think it's just making sure that it's easy, that the options are visible, and not having too many options. That's, I
know.
mean, that's the hard thing is don't make it complicated, make it simple, make it straightforward. But I think, we've got like Martha's on the line here. She's with the Uzona Chamber in Hilldale. She's an enthusiastic volunteer, just getting things back up and running there. We've got these little chambers that it just doesn't make sense to have all these entry levels and, sponsor levels and things like that. It just can make it too complicated. Want to just keep it straight and simple, specifically for our really tiny areas.
Yeah. Yeah, simple is definitely better.
Well, I like the idea of the ask up front. Maybe Abby, in our newsletter, we should kind of have some notes from our linger longers. The follow-up emails we do, and just one of them would be make sure the asks are up front. Because if you have to go back every year, it gets hard and you feel bad.
Some bullet points, and also really communicating the value. I think too often our chambers go out with our hands out and say, we want your sponsorship, we need money, but we don't say, this is the value that it's bringing to you. Again, you get this recognition, you're featured in our newsletter every month, you are a highlight speaker at chamber luncheon, those types of things. We need to be better at communicating what people get for their sponsorship. So
on that note, I have to tell you, because Jim introduced me to Constant Contact as his chamber sharing. Thank you for that. And so I added, and this wasn't part of the package, I just added, because I like Salt Lake Chambers newsletter does it. They add their big premier people at the bottom.
Yes.
So I just started doing that. I just added the logos of all of our premier people down at the bottom with links to their website. And in Constant Contact, if you click on those links, it tells you can go through the system and say, Abby Ivory clicked on the Payson Chamber website. And so I started going back and looking at that just because I was curious, because I think it's funny when competitors click on their competitors' links. I think that's funny. But so I noticed some people were clicking on a lot of things, like the pizza company here in town was getting a lot of clicks just from that logo at the bottom.
Cool.
So I sent him a text and I said, hey, I just want you to know, I didn't know if you noticed, but I added your link as a premier member to the bottom of our newsletter. And just so you know, this last week, 7 people clicked on your website from our newsletter.
Great.
And they were like, wow, that's fabulous. Thank you. So I did that with a couple of people that I was, that had just kind of maybe switched and stuff like that. I'm like, hey, just so you know, a couple people clicked on your website from our newsletter on your logo, going to your website of your business. And they were like, oh, that's really cool to know. Thank you for doing that. That's great. And so now they're really, I'm getting a sense of loyalty from them because I'm informing them things they didn't even know was going on. They would have no idea that Barrett Manufacturing was clicking on the Canyon Pizza website and ordering. They probably just thought it was another order coming through, but I'm like, hey, just so you know, you had a lot of people clicking on your website. So
that's awesome. Instead of just putting their logo, putting it as a hot link and their actual web links. That's really smart. But it's those little things, right? Making sure they're getting features on social media, doing like Abby does awesome videos, like doing short little videos with them. And
yeah. And I think then you can ask the money. We have about 25% of our membership pays $750 a year. Which I know when you go with like Cedar City and stuff like that, that's small potatoes, but we're like 2 years old and they used to pay $65 to do it. This is crazy that we have that many businesses that are doing that. And they're taking, the option gyms, a lot of them, especially in this economy, a lot more people are doing the option of doing quarterly payments. I know you do some monthly, don't you too?
Yeah, I have monthly. I got rid of the quarterly because I'm just chasing too many checks, so
but honestly, PayPal does it automatically. So if I go through PayPal and I put that in there and do it as a subscription, it automatically charges your credit card.
I've got my merchant account does that too, but it's just another thing I've got to follow up on. So I got the quarterlies to yearlies. I'd love everybody to be monthly because they're all automated and I don't have to collect any of their money. The yearlies, I got to go beg them and mail them and email them and call them. And so, yeah, it's good to have those payment options though, I think.
Yeah. But we're at 10:30 anyway, so we are out of time, but I appreciate your input, Jim, on this.
Yeah, it sounds like you'd be nothing without me, Abby. So I'm
always
glad
like
you
Jim's
met.
I talk you up a lot. Trisha, stay on. Okay.
Yeah, well, I'm
Yeah.
nothing without you, Sky. Your motivation and
Well,
your
I
ideas
really
are
appreciate it. And
phenomenal.
like Jeff, I was looking at Jeff's tiered system to see like what he did. I saved his from that women in business meeting. So anyway, I do appreciate you guys and getting ideas. So
Yeah,
thank
it's been
you.
great. Thank you so
Talk
much.
to y'all
everyone.
later.
Yeah.
All right. Bye.